This is the view from the right side of the president. The other side was a view from the left side. This is Abraham Zapruder's film. Now in the top photograph, you see Jackie looking at the president towards his face. Jack is clutching at his throat. Connolly's down. He's been hit. Now, one moment after that top photograph, well, it's actually 1 second, Kennedy's hit in the bottom photograph. But look at Jackie. She's still looking at the president's face. The only problem is his face isn't there. The president has been driven violently backward, and he continued to go backwards until his back hit the back seat. And it was only the back seat that stopped the backward projectile of his body after the impact of the hit. Then he fell into onto the floor of the limousine. But in order for the president to go backwards like that, he has to be shot from the front. Next photograph. Clint Hill has made it to the limousine, but the president has been hit. Jackie had got up onto the rear of the vehicle, and according to Clint Hill, she grabbed the back of his skull, which had landed on the back rear of the vehicle. And he brought her back into the car. The problem is, if the back of the skull is at the back rear of the vehicle, then how does it get there? It's got to be, that means the shot entered the right temple, took out the back of the skull, and landed on the rear of the vehicle. Next photograph. This is an excellent photograph of the grassy knoll. There's a cop you see with his gun in the left portion of the photograph. He thinks the shot's coming from the grassy knoll. So there's two citizens in front. Now, there's a police officer named Smith. He's a patrolman, and his back is to the school book depository. He testified that a woman came up screaming, "They're shooting the president from the bushes. They're shooting the president from the bushes." Well, the only bushes are down by the grassy knoll. Now, he testified that he thought the shot's coming from the overpass, so he ran down towards the overpass, ran up the grassy knoll, hopped over the wooden fence, pulled his gun on a man behind the wooden fence. Once again, the man this time took out regular identification of the Secret Service. Once again, no Secret Service agents are supposed to be on that wooden fence. Now, if this guy was a bona fide Secret Service agent, why didn't he capture the man firing from the trees in front of the fence, either before or after? And what's interesting, at this same time, well, another 3 minutes after this, another cop, a motorcycle cop, went to the back of the school book building. When he was going into the entrance to the back of the school book building, he noticed a group of heavily armed men in suits. They were just mingling at that back door. He asked who they were. They said they were with Secret Service. So now we've got Secret Service agents in front of Kennedy, behind the wooden fence. We've got another group of fake Secret Service agents at the Texas School Book Depository at the back exit. But they're not real Secret Service agents, so who are they? Next photograph. Now, most of the citizens are running up towards the grassy knoll at this point, but there's these two men. They're sitting on the curb, right where Kennedy got hit. There's a man in a coat and a man not in a coat. The man in the shirt seems to be speaking into a radio microphone. Is that not a walkie-talkie? And he's looking straight up towards the top of the grassy knoll. What is this guy doing with a walkie-talkie on Elm Street, specifically where Kennedy is slain? Next photograph. Look at it. What's in that man's back pocket? Isn't that the radio that he was just speaking into a second ago? Look at all the citizens running up towards where they thought the shots were coming from. This is what the government won't tell you, that most of the citizens ran and thought the shots were coming right where they were coming from, including police officers. But there's the radio man. The man, ladies and gentlemen, this is a government-sponsored hit. We've got the president being brought to Dallas. At the last minute, the motorcade is switched so that he's brought into a killing zone, meaning the Secret Service had been penetrated. You've got gunmen firing from in front of the president and from behind the president. You've got fake Secret Service agents as backup to the gunmen. And you've got a man who apparently is in radio contact with the gunman right on Elm Street where the Kennedy is hit. We can go to the next photograph. Now, where did the bullet enter into the president's head? The Warren Commission tells you that the president was shot in the back of the head, does it not? Yet a half an hour after the president has died, Malcolm Kilduff, in the photograph, the press secretary, gave a press conference. Repeatedly, he's asked by the newsman, where did the bullet enter in the president's head? With the two surgeons who operated on Kennedy standing next to him, he said verbatim, that the shot entered through the president's right temple. The problem is that the president was facing towards the overpass when the bullet hit in the right temple. Oswald supposedly 90 yards behind the president, 6 stories up. Okay, we can return from the photographs now. We're going to go into the Zapruder assassination film. It's very quick, so I want to set it up for you. What you'll see is Zapruder will capture the motorcycle cops. Then he'll pan back up left towards the school book depository. You'll see Kennedy in the vehicle. You'll see Kennedy disappear behind the Stemmons Freeway sign. When Kennedy emerges from the sign, he's clutching at his throat. Connolly will then turn 180 degrees, fall down in the car. Then at the last second, Kennedy's head will be shot. But pay particular attention to the fact that Kennedy's body goes backwards, which you saw in the still photographs. But, well, let's run the film, and I'll be quiet. Yeah. Well, you just saw treason being committed. Let's take a look at the criminal case against Lee Oswald real quick. The Warren Commission has determined Oswald's actions indicate that he was in the sniper's nest firing at the president. Really? A police officer, Marion Baker, thought the shots were coming from the school book depository. He ran straight into the front door of the school book depository, paused at the elevator, then proceeded to run up the stairwells. Followed on his heels was Roy Truly, the vice president of the school book depository. The police officer noticed the movement, swinging movement of a door. He followed it, and it led into the lunchroom of the school book depository. He pulled his gun on a man at the Coke machine. Do we have the photograph of the Coke machine? Standing right in front of this Coke machine was a man, and Roy Truly told the police officer that he was an employee of the building. The two of them turned, went back out, and went all the way up to the roof. The problem is the man that he pulled a gun on was Lee Harvey Oswald. And the police officer told the Warren Commission that Lee wasn't out of breath and he wasn't nervous. So they were concerned about this because Lee's supposed to be on the 6th floor firing at the president. He's not supposed to be on the 2nd floor getting himself a Coke. So they timed Marion Baker from where he was when he saw the shots fired at the president until he got to that 2nd floor lunchroom to the Coke machine. It took 60 seconds. Warren Commission had him do it a second time. This time it took 90 seconds. But whether it's 1 minute or a minute and a half, there just isn't enough time for Lee to be firing from the 6th floor and then a minute to a minute and a half later materialize like Captain Kirk in front of the Coke machine. We can return from that photograph. Now, at 11:30 p.m. on the evening of the assassination, Vince Drain of the FBI picked up a large paper sack found near the sniper's nest. He also picked up the rifle. He brought it to the FBI crime lab. Sebastian Latona examined it the next morning. Now, this is the world's foremost fingerprint expert using the finest crime lab. Latona told the Warren Commission that he found no fingerprints on the large paper sack, nor did he find fingerprints on the rifle. The large paper sack is important because how does Oswald smuggle the rifle in? He didn't just bring it in at 8 o'clock in the morning. The theory is he disassembled the rifle, brought it in the paper sack, hid the paper sack, reassembled it to shoot the president. And there's the paper sack near the sniper's nest. What's it doing there? Now, James Cadigan also examined the large paper sack. He's the FBI documents expert. He told the Warren Commission there were no rifle markings on the inside of that bag from this rifle or any other rifle. Several days later, Latona receives the paper sack again from the Dallas PD, re-examines it. Lo and behold, there's a fingerprint, and it belongs to Lee Oswald. But it wasn't there the morning after the assassination. And he's also sent another fingerprint with a little note saying, taken off underside of C2766, which was the Italian Mannlicher Carcano. So the Dallas Police Department supposedly got the fingerprint but not the FBI. So the morning after, there's no fingerprints on that weapon nor on the paper sack. We're told by the Warren Commission that Oswald's a marksman and that the rifle scope actually helped him shoot the president. That's wonderful. That sounds so logical until Robert Frazier, the FBI firearms expert, got a hold of the rifle. Soon after the assassination, he took the rifle out along with Cortland Cunningham and Charles Killian, other FBI agents. They fired at a target that was 30 yards away, and they missed with all 3 shots apiece. You see, Oswald supposedly shot 3 times in 6 seconds, and Frazier wants to know if you can even fire that rifle 3 times in 6 seconds. Took Charles Killian 9 seconds, Cortland Cunningham 7 seconds. But the point is they missed the target. So next thing, they moved the target back 100 yards, and now Frazier was missing the target by 5 inches above the target and 5 inches to the right, meaning the scope wasn't even properly put on. They ordered another rifle from the same Klein Sporting Goods store, checked that scope. It was off to the same degree as Oswald's, which means the guy who was putting the scopes on was improperly mounting them, which means Oswald couldn't have hit anybody with that gun. Let's take a look at Lee's photograph. This is a photograph that condemned Lee in the minds of all the American citizens. He's got a rifle, pistol, 2 communist newspapers. The problem is Dallas police officers and county detectives went out to Ruth Payne's house where Marina and the kids were staying. They did a search of the house and of the 1-car garage. They found numerous photographs. They found pamphlets of Hands Off Cuba type pamphlets that Lee had passed out in New Orleans 2 months before. And they carted off all of the Oswald's possessions, which wasn't that much because they were very poor. Now the following day, the detectives are told to go back to the garage and the house, and according to one of the detectives, Detective Rose, went straight to this photograph in the Mrs. Payne's garage. But the problem is, why didn't they find this photograph on the day of the assassination? They were there for an hour and a half. They found other photographs, but they don't find this one highly incriminating photograph. And it wasn't lost or hiding, since Detective Rose went straight to it. Oswald looked at that photograph when he was shown by Captain Fritz, and he said someone had taken his head and superimposed it on someone else's body. And Marina had said that she remembers only taking 1 snapshot, but as it turns out, eventually there's 3 snapshots. We can do a whole chapter on the case against Lee Oswald. My analysis, though, is that the Central Intelligence Agency assassinated him. The man responsible for it is a man named Richard Helms, through his position as Deputy Director for Plans, orchestrated the entire assassination. When the Central Intelligence Agency was shooting at Kennedy, they were shooting at Washington and Lincoln and Jefferson. They were shooting at you and me and our children. I think it's about time someone made these guys pay for it. Richard Helms is still alive, and I hope you join with me in keeping this alive until we get these men arrested. Thank you for your time.
Cannot make men see right. We are confronted primarily with a moral issue. It is as old as the Scriptures and is as clear as the American Constitution. The heart of the question is whether all Americans are to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities, whether we are going to treat our fellow Americans as we want to be treated. If an American, because his skin is dark, cannot eat lunch in a restaurant open to the public, if he cannot send his children to the best public school available, if he cannot vote for the public officials who represent him, if, in short, he cannot enjoy the full and free life which all of us want, then who among us would be content to have the color of his skin changed and stand in his place? Who among us would then be content with the counsels of patience and delay? 100 years of delay have passed since President Lincoln freed the slaves, yet their heirs, their grandsons, are not fully free. Now the time has come for this nation to fulfill its promise.